So as I'm sure you're all well aware, Thiago Motta has been sacked by Juventus. He is no longer the Juventus first team coach, and Igor Tudor has come in and taken over with a contract until June of this year, the last 9 games of the season, with the option to extend his deal a whole year later until June 2026. And I'm going to give you my thoughts on this and who I'd want ideally in the summer if we don't extend Igor Tudor, which I don't really think is the likely option, let's say. So when it comes to Thiago Motta, I'm left unsure in this sort of situation. I'm a bit upset. I do understand it, but I'm also a bit upset and a bit in denial in the sense that last year I was super excited when we announced Motta. I believed in the project. I believed in him as a coach. I thought what he achieved at Bologna, getting them top 5, bringing them to the Champions League, playing that sort of, that style of football that we all associated him with. Effective, attacking football, movements, in and out of possession, really interesting football philosophy that, to be honest, I hadn't seen for a while, I think, in Italian football. And I wanted him to translate that into this Juventus side. And we had a lot of players that would suit this kind of football. Cambiaso, Dean Huijsen, who unfortunately was sold, which is one of the mistakes that maybe Motta was a part of. I'm not really too sure. Fagioli, a young player who's obviously been moved on. Chiesa, explosive wingers we had. Sule, again, moved on. Ealing Jr., moved on. I was excited to see how these young players would do under Motta, and unfortunately we didn't really get to see a lot of these young players play under him, play in his system, and it didn't really work out the way we all hoped and wanted it to go. Look, I was never under the impression that Motta would come in, win the league straight away, win the Champions League, win the treble. No, my expectations were quarterfinals maybe of the Champions League, depending on who we'd lose to. I would have accepted even round of 16. It really depends who you lose to. PSV in the manner in which we lost, no. That to me wasn't ideal, wasn't good enough, to be honest, at a club like Juventus. Losing in the Coppa Italia to Empoli, again, below par. No, I wanted to win at least the Coppa Italia or the Supercoppa, and I wanted to fight for the Scudetto until the very last match day. There was obviously problems as well in the dressing room, maybe personal issues he had with maybe some players. Look, there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of noise around the situation, but the fact of the matter is Thiago Motta has gone. I wish it ended differently, of course. People are saying we should have given him more time, but yeah, it's a results business, boys. At a club like Juventus, there isn't time. The 9 months at Juventus is not the same as 9 months at, no disrespect, but a Lazio or a Roma or a Fiorentina. Still a big club in Italy, but a lesser club. You're at the top. You're at the top club. We're the big sharks. We're in a league where you don't have 2-3 years to sort of build a project. You're in and you need to have an immediate impact straight away. And he had that at the start, and I really thought this could be the game changer this season, but it didn't work out that way, unfortunately. As for Igor Tudor, I think this is a very, very good coach to bring in for the last 9 games of the season. He knows Juventus extremely well, whether that be as a player, he spent 9 odd years at the club, or as a coach, he was part of Pirlo's technical staff in the 2020-21 season. He has experience in Serie A as well, coaching Hellas Verona, Lazio. He knows the league. He knows the club mostly. He's got that Juventus DNA, you know. He is Juventino through and through, and we need someone like that at the minute to drag us over the line, to get us into top 4, to get the best out of our players, to re-motivate some of these players that maybe have lost a little bit of faith for whatever reason it may be, to get the best out of players like Vlahovic, who he's praised in the past, who for me is a player that we need to keep at least renew to increase his market value. So honestly, I'm looking forward to the last 9 games of the season with Igor Tudor. I think he is the right man for the last stage, but I wouldn't renew him for an extra year. Obviously, I haven't seen him yet coach Juventus, and we want to see that. Maybe he wins the last 9 games. Maybe it will be a different situation. But I have 2 names on my mind, and I want to know your names. Who do you want, ideally, to take over from Juventus? Make sure you leave it in the comments right now. Subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video. I'm really trying to grow my YouTube. I know, boys, I need to be more consistent. I know. I'm consistent on TikTok. I missed the TikTok, but on YouTube, I'm trying to upload more. But my 2 names are Jurgen Klopp and Antonio Conte. Now, people say, but Luca, that's not realistic. Be more realistic. For me, that's realistic. Because Antonio Conte has once been at the club. He's a Juventus fan. He's Juventus through and through. I think he would come tomorrow. And Jurgen Klopp, obviously that's a little bit more of extravagant option, a bit more unlikely. I get that because Klopp at the minute isn't coaching. He's doing this thing with Red Bull. He could go anywhere. Will he come back to coaching? But I have heard that Klopp has been in Turin in the last few months. So I think that is a very concrete possibility. I think we can attract Klopp with the project. I think Elkan invest in money. Elkan with the pool he has, getting the right players in, maybe Chiellini, some ex-players joining the board as well. I think we could potentially attract Jurgen Klopp as the dream target. But obviously I know that's slightly more unrealistic. But these two for me should be the main two names. When Giuntoli, when Scanavino, when whoever it is on the board, look at the names in the summer. They pull out a sheet. I don't have a sheet on me. I've got a laptop. They pull out the laptop. They go down. They type on the Google Docs. Who are we going to bring? I think Klopp and I think Antonio Conte should be the first two names. If you ask me which one would I prefer out of the two, to be honest, I'd be quite indifferent. I love Conte and I really, really rate and respect Jurgen Klopp. If I had to pick one, maybe I would go for Klopp in the sense that I've already seen Conte at Juventus. I want to try something a little bit different. And I think Klopp is a much better knockout tournament coach than Conte. But Conte is the better league coach. But at the same time, I wouldn't mind either. I think when it comes to Antonio Conte, I think we can lure him away from Napoli. Look, his heart's in Turin. His family, they grew up in Turin. I think we could attract him pretty simply. I mean, we know Conte likes to cause problems anyway at the clubs he's at in the summer. If De Laurentiis, he didn't back him in January, I think he's quite frustrated about that, which I mean, Napoli could win the Serie A, but they're not the favourites, Inter are. That would potentially aggravate him and annoy him and could be a driving factor for him to want to go out of the club in the summer. And I'm just convinced, in my mind, right, ever since I was young when I saw Conte leave, I always felt in my heart that he would come back eventually. That when the time was right, he would return. That story where it's like Ronaldo going back to United, you always had, it was always that feeling where he could come back. And I think Conte coming back, it's written in the stars. And Antonio Conte, for me, would elevate this team, not only its mindset, but the way it plays, its effectiveness. He would turn these guys that are young players. We have a very young squad. He would develop these young, good, talented footballers into winning monsters, into mentality monsters, into champions. And that's what we need. So I personally think Conte would be an amazing option. And then Klopp obviously is that dream option. What he did with Liverpool, transforming them from an average side to a Premier League winning team, a Champions League winning team, competing against that Pep City, which for me is the best team I've ever seen in Premier League history. Klopp's obviously going to need, I think, a little bit more investment than Conte. I think Conte can turn mediocre players into better players, whereas I think Klopp needs a little bit more budget to work with. But still, Klopp elevates every footballer that he's worked with as well. I'm not trying to say he doesn't. I don't know. If I had to pick one, like I said, maybe Klopp, just because I haven't seen him at Juventus and I want to sort of see how that goes. But part of me wants to say, I say my heart says Conte because I want to see him back at the club. My head says Klopp. But for me, these are the main two names. If one of these happen, I'm pretty confident. I know this might sound insane, but we'll win the league straight away with one of these two. I'm pretty confident in that. We'll build back into the feared opponents that we once used to be, that mindset, that mentality monsters. They'd return. The players would be motivated. The players would improve. They'd work hard week in, week out. They would develop into champions, like Conte brought us back to two Scudetto champions, to a feared opponent in the 2011-12 season, and then Allegri obviously built on top of that Conte team. So I think selecting the right coach this summer is so important. It's so key because we have messed up in the last few years on our coaching decisions. First it was Sarri, got rid of him after a year. Whether you agree or disagree, that's a whole other story. Then it was Pirlo. We won with Pirlo, got rid of him after a year. Allegri obviously did good. 3 years, consistent top fours, won a trophy at the end. Motta got rid of after 9 odd months. So I think this is so key that we just can't mess this one up. We can't. We need to invest smartly into the players this summer. I'll make a whole video maybe on players I'd like to see come in, maybe go out, etc., etc. But the manager's so key. So overall, obviously, respect to Thiago Motta. I'll thank him for what he did. He gave some very good memories in certain games. Leipzig, for example, Inter comeback, Manchester City at home beating Pep's City. That was a great emotion for me. Igor Tudor, best of luck. I hope we can finish the season extremely well, extremely strong. And I think we can. And then, but in the summer, I do think we need to go for a Conte or a Klopp. But let me know in the comments, as I said before, boys, who do you want to see come in the summer? What do you think about Motta sacking? Was it right? Was it not right? Click that follow button if you haven't already. Actually, subscribe button. We're on YouTube, not TikTok. And yeah, I'm going to be more consistent, I promise you. Let me know in the comments what you want me to improve on, maybe some other videos as well that you want to see. And I'll see you in the next one.